And we are live, I believe. Good to be with you guys, and let me know if you can't hear me. And otherwise, I'm looking forward to working with the dragons, and wonderful to see you here already. And a special thanks to Suzanne for donating, and to Kevin for donating, and to Kari for donating, and to Tara for donating, and to Natalie for your ongoing support and for donating too. So a special thanks to all of you. It's very treasured and appreciated, and I'm glad we get to do this again. I think before we get started, I'll try to just sum up some of the reptilian saga. Yeah, I used to work with them a lot, and I still think they're incredibly interesting. But it is sort of an acquired taste. Well, what they have brought through is that they came from a parallel universe where they managed to subsume everything into their being, and you can sort of think of this as two opposing forces. So if you look at the human body, it's partially constructed by, well, universal energy, and then that energy is manifested through specific patterns of tensions, and those specific patterns of tensions are what configures how energy flows through the body. And so you could think that the reptilians, sort of in their own universe, they tensed everything up, so it became subsumed into their own code. And then what happens if when you move up the ascension ladder, then you have to reunite with source, but they weren't interested in that, so they jumped to a different universe, which is our universe, where they have then been engaged in extracting energy to keep up their agenda. And there's a paradox here, of course, because I know they trigger also sometimes a lot of unpleasant emotions in people. But the basic idea is that they're, of course, dependent on our energy to even be able to work. And they do offer services to those who stay conscious of the work with them. And they also have a lot of information and wisdom to lend us. But at the same time, it's when you fear them, you're sort of working at their agenda, and it's to be thought of sort of, if you know the Wizard of Oz, right? Pay no attention to the little man behind the curtain. So they're essentially pulling all these levers, but we're the ones who are in charge and in the center of our own existence. And I promise you, they can't hurt you or do anything to you. And so I'm looking forward to working with them, and bringing in Guide Flipkraktrukrarr to answer questions, and feel out some dragon energy. So thanks for being here, guys, and I hope you enjoy. Yes, greetings to you, Earthlings. I am the Dragonlord Flipkraktrukrarr of the Ancient Shapeshifting Reptilians, and I am most pleased to be able to offer our assistance and perspectives. Know that what our dear one, the little human friend here that we are now speaking through, was informing you. It is true, but he also forgot to mention the part that we are working as parts of the human ascension. You are teaching us how to work our codes into a light grid and to become more sustainable in our own energies. And therefore, know that in this energetic exchange, we are most happy to be able to trade the gemstones and golden nuggets of our insights for the kindness and the love and the understanding that you also offer yourselves, and thereby you also offer to us being a part of the infinite cosmos that is constantly learning to understand itself in new and higher manifestations of consciousness. know that, well, you have worked with energy in many ways in your systems, but we are very skilled at this. We might even say we are the best at this, and know that energy is indeed universal and it manifests in many aspects, but it relies on the infusion of your intention and your will in order to be able to unfold itself. And what you are learning is that many of these impositions of energy that you are placing on the material world, you can work with them far more easily. You can make subtle commands to these using only your intention and consciousness, and there you will begin to release greater flows on energy than that of the fusion of the atom cores. You will be able to release massive amounts of energy once you work yourselves into your center, and notice that the energy is going around in this sector of the time space where you find yourselves focused with us now. These are energies that are quite volatile and not necessarily Martian, but indeed martial. They are energies that seek to clear out things through conflict and through the release by applying pressure, and know that the less pressure you apply, the easier it becomes for the world to yield to your attention. So indeed, the instruction is for you to identify the weak pressure points in any system within yourselves or outside yourselves, and then begin pushing these buttons by allowing yourself to become transformed with the transformation taking place in front of you. That is the advice, and much more will be divulged as we move into this exchange, and therefore we offer you our steadfast knowledge, our centered place in our understanding of power, our love in acceptance of all things there are, and our honor in the upholding of what is true and right to us, and indeed what should be true and right to you as well. There he was. And I noticed Jochen post a very cool question here on top. Hello, beautiful souls. How can we help the Chinese people to more freedom? How can we overcome the rising tension between the East and the West? Fascinating. Yes, you do so by unmasking power. You do so by revealing to people how they themselves are affected by certain codes of subterfuge, certain more dominant codes of oppression, and indeed systems of control. And each and every one of you, you choose to participate in these systems of control. These have been the dark bargains that we have struck with so many of the members of your species, that, well, we would allow for our wisdom and energy to be lent if they then would use it in order to dominate other members of your species who were more weak-willed or had greater difficulty in divorcing themselves from their basic desires and the things that they wish to attain from the naive stories they told about themselves that kept them prisoners in this system. And therefore, know that this conflict is indeed a part of this game. There is no discernible conflict between these parts of the world unless you decide to grow this experience and apprehension of it as such. So rather comprehend that each of you are individuals, and when you begin interacting with your immediate reality and to pushing those buttons of freedom, of revolution, and releasing the power you have within by identifying the weak points. This can, to give you an example, for instance, be done by transmitting codes to certain members of this society which may be alien to them, but that you hold as a part of a different world or a different perspective. And then these individuals may begin to transmit these codes to others and know that when control and dominance, it seeks to assert itself, or they seek to assert themselves, there is also the underlying corresponding energy of freedom that grows stronger and stronger, because indeed the need for human beings to be free and to release themselves, that is something that cannot be subdued, and many have tried, but at returning to this point, there is a perennial revolution going on. And so join this revolution by allowing yourself to become free, by allowing yourself to invest energies in these codes that you seek resonate with your greater higher self. And this means divorcing yourselves from all the information that you do not want, and to allow yourself to extract your attention from those points, and then turning your attention into those points of creation, creating those tight solidified spaces where your energy can grow in peace until it becomes so massive in that it can subsume other codes of lesser quality. Know that there is always a quality assigned to everything, and this quality, it can indeed be discerned by the human heart as something that is in greater servitude to what is true in you, or in lesser servitude to what is true in you. And that is a way to approach it. Come into your own power and see others follow. This is the place where you wish to go, and this is indeed also where we have been instructing this dear one to move in these times of change. Therefore, our blessings in this endeavor, as well as in all humans' endeavor that you voluntarily choose to undertake with the autonomy of your free will. And great to see you, Kevin, and Laura, and Autumn Rose, and Sophia, Jana, and Aurel, and Senison, and Liliana. Perfect to see all of you. So good to meet up with the usual suspects again. And Sophia asks, love and blessings to all. How do we heal ourselves as effectively as we heal others in the context of Reiki and other modalities of intentional healing? This is indeed a question that relies on the apprehension of difference between the energy that's moving through you and the person that is receiving this energy. It is a very relevant question, and it is quite telling of the way that you often perceive healing modalities, those of you who work with them, because you do perceive that you can become a channel for these vessels, or you can stream this energy into other individuals where it is received. But it is indeed because you move yourself into the giving mode, or the role of the conductor, while the other person becomes a type of receiving subject or object, if we may speak. And this can be quite helpful, because notice that it is indeed the intention that is different from the healer and the person being healed. The recipient is allowing for this to happen, while the healer still construes this as a type of personal sacrifice, or something that they are giving or lending themselves to. But the energy that is being shared is as accessible to the healer as it is to the person being healed. Indeed, energy is abundant, and notice that the greatest healers that have walked your planet have all been people who were able to heal others simply by being a presence of healing light and holding that light within them. And so it became available for people who sought healing from them to only reach out and believe that they could also have part in that light and in that code to actually receive the healing. But it is very relevant, practically speaking, although this is a construction of the human architecture of how you have arranged your world, that it is necessary for you to have a sender and a receiver and an object and a subject, but instead move into the place where you allow yourself to actually know that the reason that you are healing others is because you want to transmit to the outside world a very strong mirror of what you yourself wish to receive. And so when you allow yourself to come into that place of wishing to receive these energies to the same degree where you may be able to identify others who are in need of them, that is the place where you begin to grow this healing power within yourself. And this power is great, it is unlimited, and it does not stop in the cosmic game until you yourself, your point of consciousness, it reaches back into source and aligns with it completely. There is great healing to be had here. And so permission slips that you can use for this game that you are playing of sending healing to others is that you can infuse other objects or living things that you ingest for healing and nourishment. You can invest them with this healing energy and then allow this to be a type of gift that you unwrap, that you give yourself, and know that it is a type of gift that is being given by a higher, more radiant, more eternal and secure part of you that then transmits it back to that part of you that seeks the healing, the physical manifestation of you. And that is the allowance that would be helpful for you to move into. And we bless you in this quest and thank you for growing the higher frequencies in this time space. We too are sharing in the healing modalities, and we too are becoming radiant as we ascend to these higher degrees of understanding and connectivity to you. Know that everything is a mirror, and when you beam light out from your hand to heal others, you just allow that light to reflect back into you. And it will and may blind you at first, but then your eyes will get used to it and they will grow the more attuned to catching subtle nuances in this healing light pouring in. Blessings to you in this endeavor. Yeah, I actually think like he has a pretty cool energy. That's my own personal feel of it. Could you speak more of medieval times and all of the lore around dragons? I'm very interested in this period of when the last dragon supposedly roamed the earth realm. I would like to hear a different story, one that shows a positive relationship between man and dragon. Well, yes, indeed. Know that in these medieval times was when these stories they were told, but they hailed from older times. They hailed. So the last of our kind that was present on Earth was slain approximately 3,000 years ago, but the memory of them remained alive, and it remained alive in myth. But know that what was translated was indeed the awakening codes of energy, fire, power into humankind. And know that you often also connect these times with the codes of chivalry, with the codes of personal power, with the codes of the mounted knight, that individual who was able to wield this power. And so the symbolic or symbolic codes of the symbolism of these tales, it arises from the fact that this was a time when the dragon power was alive and well in humankind, and it allowed for the allowance of certain confrontational codes to be shared. Perhaps most illustrative of this is, of course, that confrontation of the Crusades, where two civilizations that were deeply interwoven and connected in their origins and their cultures began to conceive of each other as radical enemies to be exterminated or changed or subdued. And this allowed for the warrior codes to then breathe certain fierce energies within human beings. And that is something that you can align with. Again, know that you have the full power to also confront what you may not wish to integrate. That is a choice that you have, and this is not in harmony with many of the other messages that are coming from those, in many ways, inferior or benevolent cats or other beings, star beings that beam in these messages, because they have their own agendas, but they are not straightforward with you. They seem to act out things that they may seem would be beneficial for you, but indeed is in a type of subterfuge that is pulling you in their direction. And so what we offer you is a type of honesty in the fact that we actually seek power as an instrument to change worlds. And when you awaken this power within yourself, it is still within your free will to use it for the agendas you may please. So you can activate this power, and then you can actively choose to follow those agendas of integration and illumination that other beings are bringing into the world, but you do so from the standpoint of your own power. And so notice that there is not necessarily a conflict in the idea of the confrontation between dragon and man, because it was indeed illustrative that you would replace us and begin to work with our energies in more subtle codes as you began to become the dominant species on this planet. And we have had our time on this planet exploring many material codes and indeed dominating the physical universe. And we need not to go any further than to remind you of your dinosaurs, to know that this is an experiment that we have already unfolded, and therefore we are not so engaged in trying to again explore the direct physical codes, but rather work in these subtle ways of power and of aligning with a strange type of physical configuration which the human body is to us. But there are, of course, many Dragon Slayer myths that you could go into and know that these tell a positive sign of your potential. There are also, and these are not too vivid of the friend that we are coming through, but you could, of course, dive into, in particular, those myths belonging to the Chinese culture and the way that here dragons are also sensed to bring fortune and luck. Because know that this power, we bring you, for instance, the tale of Ragnarok, or the idea that when he slew that dragon, he did so by shielding himself in a fur coat. And that was the idea that, well, these energies, these warrior energies, when you do not seek them out confrontationally with your pure intention, your courage, they will turn into a poison that can then destroy your being. And that is why it is important for you in these times to also apply an energetic code of power to your energetic selves, or your auras, or your shields that meet the world and confront them, because this is the place where you can work these codes into conducive currents that help grow everything. You will be nothing if you just allow yourself to run with every energy, but you will be everything if you allow these energies to work your will. We sense that is the helpful advice we want to bring you this day. Blessings to you. Yeah, I believe it was Ragnarok, if I'm not mistaken. That was the myth. Sometimes I mess him up with some of these other Nordic dragon slayers, but it is, it's, you know, it's the story. It's like a classic. It's like a classic pagan dragon slayer story where he has to seek this out. And this, of course, turns into the myth of Saint George and the dragon. And I've been working with them, with someone in particular with a lot of these myths. So it's also fascinating to bring forward. Know that, for instance, the colors of white and red are the colors of the Dragon Slayer. You'll find this in a lot of European countries, England and Denmark, for instance, and these sort of have this combination of the white infused with the pure power of the draconic red. And if you really want to add some powerful magic to it, you can throw some black in there, and then you can really get going. So those were just also some advice on some of these color combinations. And RL, good to see you, man. Dragonlord, a question from the dark. Please bring it your light. In a world of lies, how can one tell the truth and be heard? Wonderful question. Yes. Know that the truth is a snowball. And so it begins with you holding to that pearl, clutching it in your hands, and then allowing it to seat at your center. Know that this has a particular specific radiance that cannot be broken, and it will produce in you a sort of resonance of meaning, of potential, of interconnection. And know then that this tiny gem, this diamond of truth, this crystalline ice grid that does not melt, it can then roll into a snowball effect, and you may not sense its effects on what it is having, but it is having a far greater effect, because what it also reveals is often, and what it brings up in people, is that it will bring out their words, it will bring out their codes of refusal as their first response. They will try to mobilize that egoic part of themselves, which is always mobilizing a counter narrative, which is always creating narratives around their own desires and compulsions. Indeed, human beings are so happy to string words together to avoid the immediate reality of felt energy, of felt power, and of felt truth. But know that all these people who feel this power and who bring it forward, they are touching people in ways that they often cannot imagine. Know that it only takes the activation of one other person who resonates with this truth to begin to shape that grid into an interconnection. And when this interconnection happens, you are beginning an energetic process that cannot be held back, because truth holds the highest vibration. It is in accordance with beauty and love, but much as you will see new art forms not being accepted or being rejected by many people before it becomes obvious by those people who were able to set that narrative aside and move into the pure experience of what was being shared, know that then it grows and it actually begins to define the world that others live in, expressed, for instance, in the idea that poets create a new reality and then the rest of humanity have to live in it. This is indeed the signature of the truth. And therefore, when you know that this will come in confrontation with lies, it is easier to dismiss it as such. But also notice that there is often an immediate response in your, let us say, private resonance chamber of individual experience, where things begin to alter slightly for the better. And by better, we do not mean in the ideas of material enhancement or the accumulation of stuff or things you can attach to. We mean in the sense of a deep sense of knowing, of abiding in that truth that you are living and carrying out your calling down here. And so indeed, the truth is a type of angelic kernel that you bring down into the world to change the entire cosmos. And do not bother yourselves with the lies, because the lies are, in a sense, only slightly lesser manifestations. They often operate on truths that have been outdated. And that is something powerful to witness when you do this. It is something that is powerful to witness, and know that maybe the only immediate witness to your changing of this truth that comes into the world, your creation and allowance for this. It might be the birds perched upon the branch in your garden, or it might be the cat that keeps you company, or it might indeed be the sound of silence itself. But all these forces are listening, and they are bearing witness to what is happening. They are marveling at the creation and heightening of this world into what it truly intends to be, and the unfolding of the human planet is as it was meant, you being beings of truth, seated in your own possibility of power and creation. Blessings for this question. Okay, that was very illuminating to me too. And I'd like, Yana asks, I'd like to discover the dragon power inside me, that element of fire. How do I go about it? Thank you. Honor, power, strength, love. We appreciate that you mirror back our themes of exploration in that finishing statement. We also appreciate that you wish to align the dragon power, but how you do this indeed is to not seek anyone else to activate it. It is already present within you. And so instead go to the elements themselves, go to the force of fire that's seated in your navel, and begin to flame that fire by feeding it your intention. Begin to flame that fire by surrounding yourselves with the magic of fire and create powerful circles of this. You can do this by arranging candles. You can do this by lighting bonfires. You can do this by screaming or yelling or letting out your breath. Indeed, so many of you would do well to let out your power in a deep primal scream if that was something that would serve you, and that is something that would serve you. But many of you believe that there is something wrong with you when you let this thing out. And so what we can offer you is simply the permission slip to grow that power, that thing that wants to release itself within you by letting it out. Always let it out. Fire needs new fuel to be consumed, and that is how you grow it. And so even our guidance is not enough to let that fire out if you do not allow it for yourself. So become that mounted warrior, become that creature that seeks to release its own will upon the world with a degree of confidence and a degree of certitude that will command a certain forcefulness in your outside realm. Power, honor, strength, and love to you indeed too. Hello, beautiful loved ones. Hello, Citizen. And Laura asks, my love and gratitude to you. My love and gratitude to you, Dragonlord Flip. I have been working with the Sophia Dragon type, a collective of ascended masters working with a lineage of seraphim dragons of the Sophia divine feminine aspect of Source. Have you encountered or interacting with these creatrix dragons? If it's possible, would you see if they have a message for you? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you too. Exciting. I'll just take it in. I'll just read it one more time. I've been working with the Sophia Dragon Tribe, a collective of ascended masters working with the lineage of seraphim dragons of the Sophia Divine. Is there a proper place for, with the Sophia Divine feminine aspect of Source? Have you encountered or interacted with these creatrix dragons? And if it's possible, would you see if they have a message for me? Thank you. Yes, I know those witches. I am kidding you here, dear one. This is an aspect of our energy that decided to merge into Source far earlier in the process that where I am coming from. And And therefore, you will experience these indeed as angelic dragons, and therefore also know that they are exactly aligned with the Sophia, or the divine instinct, because these are creatures of emanation, such as I, also exploring a more masculine pattern in our unfolding of our dragon reptilian energy, am indeed also someone who is engaged in the working with emanation. And that is to say that they are transmitting light codes from source. And this manifests itself in aspects of divine wisdom. And therefore, they are seated up high, close to the 12th dimension, sometimes moving a little lower in vibration in order to transmit new codes into the creation of source. And so, for instance, some of the qualities of radiance that you perceive in your rainbow, and indeed some of the qualities or discernments or nuances in that the feminine eye is able to discern, it having a more complex degree of discernment into the sensory universe. These were indeed written and created by these dragons of which you speak, this collective. And the message they have for you is to move into this greater nuance, because you have already created a greater degree of nuance from a rather, seen from their perspective, a rather confused spot in you coming into this incarnation. You are becoming very, very discerning, and that's also why you can move into the communication with these different arrangements of beings, and therefore you may sense that if you choose to address them with a prayer, one specific, very bright feminine dragon may come forward and assist you. Wink, wink. This may is a type of, this may only allows for your power, because this will certainly happen, but know that of course it only happens by the infusion of your creational power and intention into this movement. So they are most happy to be exchanging these codes, and they are most happy to keep teaching you the subtleties of the higher realms. And if you want to, they will even instruct you in how to make potions and arrange altars for them to come through in a even higher degree. And so our blessings to you in that, dear one. Yeah, he doesn't mince words. um, and Sailesh asks, greetings, Dragonlord Flipkraktrukrarr. Are you able to talk about the black dragon that's deeply inside the Yucatan Peninsula, the same impact spot of the asteroid 66 million years ago? Fascinating. Some good questions again today, guys. Thanks for them. Yes, this is a deep layered aspect of our energy. Since this dragon is asleep, it hides many of the codes from that asteroid impact of which you speak, that very famous impact which gave, we believe, birth to the Caribbean Sea and also extinguished the dinosaurs. And so we had to cool down our energies and put them into a type of stasis. This was the beginning of us learning to transmit and work our energies into the fields of other living beings on this planet. And therefore, you may also sense that this dragon energy, it is being created, or it has fed its energy into the deposits of obsidian that are so rich in these parts of the world, and there it has demanded for this blood to be spilled in order to teach the wisdom to human beings of the passing of differing forms, but the remaining of the continual and continuous energy of human endeavors. So by allowing to be worshipped in this way, by demanding the sacrifice of blood, it has taught you that there are ways to develop yourself by lending energies from the dark to serve the light. Indeed, there are lesser dragons residing on all major mountain chains of your continents, but this one of which you speak is the major one, only rivaled by a dragon seated approximately under the Sahara, infusing this place with a far more greenish, deep energy of working the solar codes in this place. And so this black dragon, it will awaken at the time you know as Judgment Day, not to be seen by individuals here, but the draconic energy is awakening, and it is, notice again, activating the bloodlust in these particular areas, calling out for human beings to work out how they bring about these unintended, unconscious destructions to their fellow beings, to their environment, exactly by letting aggression flow unconsciously and uncontrolled. And the lesson you are being taught is that aggression is essentially the control of direct and pure energy, of pure life force turned into a type of destructive or superseding into imposition on the physical realm. You could also think of this as a lesser manifestation of that energy, you know, as Kali, or the great destroying mother who then gives birth to new things. It is indeed in many ways a female dragon that lies seated here, and she transmits her dark mother energies to give life to new suns, new worlds, and new understandings. We thank you for this question, and it has been very interesting, we sense, for many to hear this wisdom being spoken and being shared by us. Whoa. Yes. I actually acquired this mask, which is lapis lazuli and crystal quartz and obsidian, so local crystals, and I feel like it has some of the energetic grid sort of incorporated into it. So I've just been very fascinated by it, and I thought since obsidian came up and the local energies, it would be interesting to show it to you. And it was, by the way, like an Alduela, an old grandmotherly figure who sold it to me. So I think that was neat. And thank you for the question. And there's a type of camera delay, so I can't see if I'm in shot before without a little time passing. But I hope you saw the crystal configuration. Yes, Jay asks, why do some reptilians not choose service to self like the ones involved in harvesting Earth? Well, we would argue that they are indeed in service to self. That is, they are indeed in service to that center within them. They are in service to the accumulation of power within them. But if you ask why they do not choose to transmit your freedom to human beings, it is because they are rather straightforward, or let us say almost commercial creatures. Notice also how your dimension of luck is connected to your idea of barter. That is, they want something for something. They don't necessarily want to work the human codes unless they can also transmit some of this value and some of this energy you are offering to them. By transmitting it back to, we could call it the reptilian mainframe. It is primarily still centered around that star of Alpha Draconis, but it has a lot of tendrils reaching out to the infinitudes of this galaxy, and indeed many, many, many other galaxies. And so these are, as we would argue, far more straightforward in that they may not be kind, but you know where you have them. They are willing to do deals with you. They are willing to enter into exchanges as long as you also do your part. And that is indeed calling forward the responsibility, the activation of human power, your sense of capability, rather than simply lending all that sweet goody love from the heavens down for you to spill on the earth and discount as you please. So notice what you enter into trade around is something that often gains a far greater value for you than those things that are simply offered to you. And they, in that sense, represent a type of anchor, so that you do not necessarily just become an instrument of energy, but that you also always come into the place where you choose between the things that you want to interact and trade with. It also means that they are in serving the all or the highest good, where everything is in order. They are offering a contrast experience. And so how would you discern that there were light beings also offering their benevolent love for you to simply reach out and touch, if you didn't know that there were also beings who demanded something in return from you? And then you can select whether or not you want the free pie or the steak that you pay for in one place or the other. And surprisingly, so many humans choose to have the steak that they pay for. That is your doing, human beings. We simply play our games, and it is up to you whether or not you want to play them with us or not. Blessings for this question and for the energy you offered to us in it. Oh, it seems to have frozen here a little while. I'm working with the five. I'm working with the 4G, and I hope it's okay. It doesn't get any. It doesn't get any better. And Jennifer asks, may I ask for assistance? And if you didn't get that question, I'll just sum it up. They say it's because they want to they want to teach people that well, you have the choice, and you can exchange energies with whatever entities you want to. So that was sort of the lesson to be gleaned from that. Jennifer asks, may I ask for assistance and guidance for clearing my blood after this lifetime's battle with cancer? How old is this imbalance in my bloodline? Yes. You are looking to purify yourselves or yourself. But by yourselves, we speak of the spiritual line, because what you are looking to clear out is your allowance of the dark to somehow be in your role as a light emissary to this planet, something that you would take in to try to subsume it. And what you are learning now is that, well, the more you begin to radiate, the more shadow you will also cast. And this shadow, you still have grown attached to it somewhat, meaning that it still resides in your energy field. This is not to warn you that the cancer is coming back. And we know this is not something that your doctor would back us up in, but we would actually say looking into very, very minute mercury infusions would be something that could help you clear out some of these energies. Other than that, try to examine other such perhaps gold or other metals that are quite heavy that might actually replace these types of cancerous dark energies with something that's more connected to earth and which has a more flowing vibration and illumination of light. And this is a way that you can begin to clear these out with physical permission slips. But another way that you can work with this is, well, the idea of allowing fire to flow through you, and notice that there are plants that create this sense of fire within you. And these are often foodstuffs. So we are pointing to, for instance, the magic of the chili pepper or of other plants that contain capsaicin. We are also pointing to the strong ingredients in a substance such as mustard. These need to be ingested in doses where you may not find them helpful, but these are ways to begin to clear that fire pattern. Know that this is an ancient ancestral pattern, and you would not be here asking this question if you were not illuminating with the light. And instead try to also notice how a lot of your immediate circumstance, the work you are doing and the work you are sharing, it reflects a great degree of light, and it reflects a great degree of, indeed, victory over the darkness. And when you allow yourself to again mirror back this light that you have created in the outside world, you will begin to realize that the darkness has already subsided within you. And therefore, you are coming into a place of healing, and you have healed these ancestral lines already. It is simply for you to acknowledge that and to give it the last push. Blessings to this and the healing of the dragons we offer to you. And Stephen asks, can you connect with my dinosaur mom and see if she has any messages for me? Thank you. You asked for it, mate. Yes. She says that you are supposed to get your shit together and stop playing these silly games of deception with yourselves, and stop trying to impose these silly games of deception with others. She's an energy that is somewhat present, but of course she's not your mother. Your mother is a human being. How would you have a human body if you were not a human being? So stop feeling special and get to work, Sonny. That's what she's saying. Go clean your room and take it from there. Hush, blessings and lessons from your mother. Yeah, the dragons, they don't mess about, right? And Ashen asks, my life seems to be falling apart. I would love any advice. Thank you. Is it falling apart, or is something else coming together? You know this, of course, but we remind you that things don't necessarily come apart unless you stop lending your higher vibration or energy to them. That is, that you have grown out of resonance with these things that fall apart. And now you are in that stage that has many names, but in the traditions that we have informed, such as magic, it is known as crossing the abyss. And therefore you may begin to examine what rituals, invocations, and things you can do to begin to create that other thing, because it is only elements of your life, that unbroken, unified process of what you are and what everyone is participating in, that is coming apart. So the more that you can allow yourself to actually evaluate whether or not these things that are slipping from your reach, whether or not these are things that you could actually see yourself extrapolating into the future, or whether or not you can actually imagine other better things that will come into your grasp once you let go of these. This is the best and most expedient advice we can give you, to release whatever it seems to be parting from you, and therefore then to focus on attracting those things that might replace them for a better, more wished for reality in your being. That is where you are, and this is what is reaching you. It will come into your life no matter what. You are not dying, friend. You are simply changing and emerging from the chrysalis. But the faster that you can lend your hands, your intention, and your energy to this, the less painful it would be, and the less time you have to spend in these reconstruction periods and configurations. Blessings to you in this. And Crystal, good to long time no see. Good to have you with us. Hope you're doing well there in Canada, and the cats are well too. I was told my dragon guide is named Rukla, as well as the Council of Dragons also. Can you speak on him a bit more and how I might relate with them? Thank you. Any words at all are wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes. Build a stone altar, and in that place we find that your friend, he is advising you to seek out a stone, a red granite stone and a black granite stone, and then a part of tourmaline to connect these, and then a piece of quartz or any other white or luminous stone to be seated in the center of this circle that you create. And you can create this circle in different ways, but it is important that it's demarcated so you can see it. And from this place, you can then begin to quieten your mind in the presence of this stone circle. And their whispers will come, instructions will come from these stones on how for you to heal yourself, how for you to move into this power, how for you to connect to this entity. And you might even experience also, being rather visionarily inclined as you are, that there are indeed energies, what may look like asphalt, the heat rising from asphalt or hot surfaces on a warm day, that there will be these energies moving about on top of these stones. And there you can begin to realize that this forms a type of protective, empowering grid around all things that find yourself in your immediate vicinity, around your own body and around the house you are in. All of you can play around with this type of construction, but the particular construction and the crystal configuration that we are lending to you here is something that is very helpful to you in particular, and to communicating to him. And he is seeking to reach out, or otherwise he would not be present in your consciousness. And therefore, we wish you the best of luck, and we are very lucky creatures in connecting to him in this respect. Blessings. And David asks, hi, can you shed some firelight on what I'm experiencing and how to overcome and back into balance to move forward? And anything about my fracking and the anger level. And I'm sure, ask the entities and then they'll answer, and I'm sure they can, but it's always helpful if you give a little details on what it is you're going on, and not just what you're experiencing. I know some people think that that these entities are somehow omniscient and know everything and can see everything, but like there are certain barriers for working this type of magic and channeling, and I can only transmit what your higher selves are allowing me to be transmitted to you at that moment, or they're transmitting to the entity, and I'm translating. I could probably try to do the other thing, but that would be black magic and have terrible ramifications for me, so it's not something I'm interested in. But to return to your question, David, thank you for being here, and I'll just try to ask them. Yes. Well, move into your anger, friend, because you sense that this is an imbalancing force, but it is only an imbalancing force because it is being denied. So often human beings confuse the state of balance with the state of attainment, or the state of richness, of fulfillment, of diversion, of excitement. And all of these things might have their purpose, but indeed now it is your anger calling you. Now it is these strong emotions that want to move through you. And the more you can allow for them to move through you, the more you can allow for this passage of deep energy. So do not necessarily react to your anger, but try to give it a type of physical expression. And that might be you going to a shooting range, or throwing rocks at something, or punching into something, or shouting at something, or writing very, very angry messages at the people who you think have incurred this anger. And know these are all indeed ways that you then manifest the anger in the outside world without turning it into a destructive karmic force that grows and will return to destroy you. But instead, it is something that you allow to flow through you. So many of you find yourself stirred by confrontational energies and the need to break down things in your life. And the more you can choose which things to break down, and the more you can mobilize these sensations of great force that are stirring within you, the greater you will sense that balance becoming, and know that your balance is not a place you can move back into, because what happens indeed, this is the illusion of time and continuity that your personality and 4D experience relies on. And we are not addressing you particularly here, but all of you, the idea that, well, there was a state, and how do I get that state back? But you can never get a moment or a state back. You can only move into a higher orchestration of that same feeling from the point where you are now at. Because what it's actually teaching you when you move from balance and out of balance is that there's a higher state of equilibrium to be attained for you. And you do this by allowing whatever is coming through you to find the most constructive output, and to find itself in an expression where it's being manifested without being destructive. And instead there you harness the power of your inner feeling, of your inner power center, which is great and which is connected to the divine. That is a very helpful way to work with these energies. And know if you do that, you will be brought into this greater state of equilibrium that you seek. Blessings to you in this, our dear friend. And great to high stress causing rapid pulse. Excellent, David. Yeah, I think that it's still worked. The advice that, yeah, that he's telling me, let it out instead of containing it. Like let that sense of forcefulness out. And seeing as I'm privileged to work with several individuals doing readings, I can tell you, and also from myself, as you may have noticed from my recent video, but sort of these forceful energies arising within us, where we really feel called to almost also demarcate ourselves, and it's probably pretty useful that we allow ourselves to do that. And great to have you here, Shyam. I see and I see that Stephen, well, you're asking the same question again. I did notice it the first time that there are second questions, but I also like try to prioritize to only answer one personal question. So shoot us something of general interest, because you already asked us to contact your dinosaur mom. That was the selfish question for the day. So that's yes, and. And Shyam, shoot us with a question, if you would. Thank you, and then I'll and let I. Oh, Senison asks here. I had a channeling where I was told that I was a dragon. Could you tell me more about this dragon life I had? I feel strong love for you, dear dragon friends. Eternal love to you. Well, yes. We will actually use this to instruct our friend here to do something instead, and we will instruct you to realign with your own channeling energy. But what we have been teaching, along with many of his guides, is that our friend here is not to respond to information that comes up from other channelers, because this means that he's actually absorbing a lot of energies that is not conducive and helpful to his own process. And so go back and ask that channeler if it's important to you. Otherwise, tap into using that creation of the altar, tap into that deep resonance you feel, and there explore those memories that are coming up, and explore this dragon lifetime for yourself. That is the very helpful process that we can offer you. And then you have had multiple dragon lives, but since you are aiming at a specific one, we will say track that thread where it went loose for you, instead of trying to reconnect it to another thread. That is essentially also a hidden message here that you can imply in many aspects of your life. Blessings. Yes, as you may have noticed from my previous energy, I have become far too intertwined with things. So I'm just starting to demarcate my borders in what I'm doing here in instead. And that's yeah. If other channelers tell you stuff, go ask those channelers. That's not that's much better for everything. And then you can come to the entities coming through me, or your own guides that I can channel for you, and ask them questions. That's far more helpful. Excellent. Question 2: which is the better, to drink filtered water with remnants of added fluoride, or mineral water in plastic bottles? Yes. We may remind you that, well, some of this mineral water might just be industrially filtered water that still contains elements of added fluoride. But we would say that, as you have also discovered, if this fluoride is not tied up in more complex molecular connections, it is better for you to avoid water that has this certain free flowing element within it, because it does tend to obstruct the free flow of energy, especially in those degrees of high complexity that are seated within you. And therefore it is helpful for you to drink bottled water indeed, but also know that these are instead things that you can all neutralize and work in your ways around. If you find yourself drinking water with fluoride, it is not something that necessarily impedes you to a greater degree than any other thing that may be bad for you. It is simply that it tends to move into your body in a very unconscious way, and it tends to lodge itself in places that are hard to access traditional methods of purification and blood flow. And therefore, if you allow yourself to increase your blood flow in those regions where you feel it may have become stagnant, and that can be, for instance, by ingesting teas of detoxifying herbs, you can flush out this fluoride. But we would recommend, if you are drinking water where this is either an added element or a residue that seeps in from other parts of the environment, then to spend more time detoxifying and also using these techniques that may be available to you. And notice just getting your blood flow up, that will in a sense have a detoxifying effect. Blessings to you in this. Still got lots of them pesky cats. Yes, it's gotta love them cats. Oh, he's growling now in the back of my. They don't like the cats. It's so funny with that conflict going on between the dragon and the feline structures. But I appreciate it a lot. And Laura asks, would you talk about the awakening, reawakening of the 12 strands of human DNA? I have the sense this awakening supports us to more fully embody our higher selves. If this is so, would you also speak about that? Much love. Okay, yes, I got it. Sorry, it was just below. I was looking for something more. The awakening, reawakening of the 12 strands of human DNA. I have the sense this awakening supports us to more fully embody our higher selves. If this is so, would you also speak about that? Much love. You are on point, dear friend. Knowing indeed what is happening in this awakening experience is that you are allowing for more spiritual energy or more high vibrational energy to be to be condensed and then merge with the human body, then bringing the human body into a more radiant frequency. And as it has been described to you, this will also make your physical appearances emanate far more light, emanate far greater light codes from your being. And so notice that you can connect the 12 strands to the 12 dimensions, or the rays that were communicated to you in theosophy. And so the upper five ones, they are still quite obscure for you to reach, but you are now feeling that far more energy is flowing through you, and you are now feeling, and also many of you are developing these types of energy intuitive skills that indeed were also addressed in your last question. Notice that this greater degree of discernment is because more of your physical body is becoming radiant, and then this means that you are able to receive and be a conductor for far more of that light, also knowing that you can both hold the light and transmit it to others. And this is indeed what is happening. And you can the physical effect is actually also speaking of that higher pulse that another friend was experiencing, that many of you are sensing, that the pure vibrational level of your bodies is becoming higher. So blood is coursing through your veins faster, your heart is beating slightly faster, and your body responds to this with its normal functions that it has hitherto been using to regulate itself. That is, for instance, the release of hormones such as cortisol, or the release of a transmitter such as adrenaline. And these are things that you will begin to work out. And the best way you can do this is then to ground and to allow to calm yourself and to move into more soothing places of exploration. And that is indeed the information that we think is pertinent to share with you on this subject at this moment. And we bless you for this question and in your process, all of you, in moving into this higher degree of power. Blessings to you. And yes, I said you also said extreme anxiety, and sorry to hear that, man. And and what I'm sensing is like the more that you can sort of turn your mental sort of your mental attention away from this and into a type of release of the more it will, because it has to do with a lot of things wanting to be cleared out, and when you clear them out, it will try to restabilize itself. But like drink lots of water, eat bread and heavy vegetables, beans, potato, rice, like anything that has heavy grounding effects, but and doesn't have adverse effects like caffeine or sugar or television or anything. That's kind of what they're beaming in. So if you can sort of really force yourself to get heavy and to try to ignore this and focus on, well, a few of your favorite things. So raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens and those things, and go walking in the woods. And okay, this is not build a snowman was something I was getting, but you know, these types of, maybe they're giving me build well, we call it a cave, a shelter. I believe it would be build a type of shelter in the woods. That would be very good for you. And And IMAX says, and Steven says, sorry, getting up to par. Don't be sorry, man. Thank you for being here and your questions. And IMAX too says, a question: am I connected to dragons in any way? My channeling girlfriend mentioned something along those lines just briefly a few days ago in a WhatsApp message. Well, yes, you are indeed connecting to a dragon because your channeling girlfriend has a lot of dragon energy. So our best advice is take good care of yourself and watch out for the fire that's being transmitted to you. You are indeed connected to our energy friend, and the more you can begin to grow your sense of power and energy and center yourself within yourself, the greater you will begin to feel in your own body. And this will also make you be able to select what energies you want to receive from others. We do not mean to rag on your loved ones. We do sense that this is something that is serving the both of you in the unfolding of this relationship. But the idea is that it's helpful for you to also know that receiving powerful forces into your life as you allow yourself to, it is helpful to also call on the draconic energy to make that power flow and seal it off in your body. So blessings to you in this. Interesting. Oh, and in this universe, is there only one physical Earth, or many, much more, much love, and thank you for asking a general question, Stephen. Yes, it indeed depends on your perspective. What has been brought through, and we have informed you many times through that channel in earlier messages, is the idea of the chiral earths. So there are indeed things, earths, that are a part of this earth but completely separate from your experience, where other things are going on. And there is, for instance, a type of direct shadow or polar earth in another frequency band, but that exists within this universe, but simply that doesn't exist within the experience frequency band that human beings reside in. Then there is, of course, also Earths of the multiverse. There are also, well, different parts of Earth that resist in, that is Notice that it works both vertically and horizontally, and we are using metaphors that human beings are used to here because these are indeed all vibrational frequencies, but that there are Earths that exist on the approximately same density band that you exist on, but that aren't visible to you because these spaces are occupied by different types of consciousnesses that register and use this Earth differently, but she's also using her energy to it. And then you notice that in the dimensions, or in that was the horizontal, then in the vertical dimensions, you may sense that there are higher and higher vibrational frequencies of Earth. There are also lower vibrational frequencies of Earth. Then there is, in the multiverse, there is the infinite stretch of timelines in which Earth is having infinite experiences, lending itself and its energies to infinite parts of you. So in that sense, yes, but speaking of a physical Earth or a planet such as you would think of it as, well, the neighboring planets, there is many Earth-like worlds around in the different multiverses, though they vary some when you get to other galaxies. There are also many different Earth-like worlds, as you are indeed discovering within what you call the Goldilocks zone of distant information of stars that are similar to yours, but none of them are exactly the same as this Earth, because the universe prefers, and indeed Source prefers to have a lot of difference in its experiments, and so it would make little sense to it to create something completely identical, but it makes a lot of sense to it to vary this theme with only small variations. And indeed, this is when you perceive human beings, the same thing that's going on, that you are all quite similar in your basic makeup, but there are infinite variations within the small dissimilarities that each of you hold. And this is the way that infinity likes to play with form and matter. Blessings to you for this question. Oh, excellent, Shyam. Um, I check if I missed anyone, but and yes, I would love to know if I have any dragon connections. Would love to work with them. I used to imagine standing in the presence of them in the past. Presently, feel it's my ego wanting grandiosity. Good question. Yes, what the draconic energy is allowing you, and what is indeed in many ways the universal permission slip that we are transmitting to you, is that do not deny any elements of yourself. You are correct in not feeding your ego as the prime part of your being, and realizing that this is something that is indeed separate from the true nature of you. But also know that the feeling of grandiosity is really, in many ways, an egoic translation of the instinct of the pure vibration that you actually are, that infinite, wonderful creation. And so what you can do is that you can carefully select, and you can even jot this down intentionally, which dragons you would like to work with and how you would like to assist them. You have quite a lot of draconic connections, but the entity coming forward here is an entity of a more purplish hue, and it speaks of its name. It calls itself Mala, Mala, and it's giving us, it's the same name as the idea of the Indian rosary. And it is somehow pointing to this fact that the concentrated circuit of energy within you is not one that growing this is not one that necessarily feeds its curiosity, but it upholds also this circulation of spiritual light within your physical body. And the more you work on circulating that, that is not necessarily something that will bring you into dominance codes over others, or feed your ego in ways that will distract you from your true self. It is rather something that we are being a little distracted, as sometimes these bird friends come to our friend's window and begin pecking on it. But do not be afraid. These are also just creatures that want to distract us from transmitting the message. And so what we are saying to you is that if you work this dragon energy, and indeed this purplish ascended dragon is offering its energy for you to grow that current within you and to empower you, and thereby know that you are not only doing yourself a favor, you are doing everyone a favor by stepping into your creative force. And know then with this element of conscientiousness that you put forward, this concern that you might be serving your ego, is exactly the thing that, when you keep this in mind, prevents you from moving these energies into the wrong places. That is the blessing and the allowance that we encourage you to give this day. Thank you. And they have a really hard energy to hold, and I am also feeling a little frazzled from this very, very powerful full moon. But I'll take a few more questions. And yes, and thank you for your sweet energies too. And Sophia asked, this is a very interesting question, and thank you for reminding me. If there is time, could you talk about the Sanqingdu archaeological site in China and its mysterious origins? Many thanks. And I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but yes. I looked it up after the last time to inform the rest of you, and it really is a very fascinating with both the recent finds and the artwork there, and it does actually look somewhat like this. So it has this type of stylized geometric configuration. So let's ask them. Yes, this was one of the manifestations or creations or pockets of civilization that the survivors of Atlantis created. That is why it may seem to you that so many of these creations that they bring forward and their configurations and indeed their coherence in their expression, it seems like it was brought forward by very skilled people. And know that the people from the survivors of Atlantis, they were both struggling with the differing vibrations, meaning that it became more difficult for them to get into those, let us say, relay stations and connections to the other side that they had been used to in forming their civilization. Of course, they were also traumatized survivor civilization. Therefore, but we sensed the primary thing really guarded was the code of the I Ching, this old, but here it found a place where it survived, having been lost to and transformed in many other receptions where these civilizations went. They all did their best to recreate the memory how it was, but they had lost much of their guidance, and so instead they began building these systems. And there were indeed still some of the priestly class who were able to consult some of these, let us say, more elemental energies living in the landscape for guidance, but it was done very much out of this type of the spirit of survival, then moving into a civilization of thriving and creation. And so what is being revealed to you in these times of disclosure has as much to do about your past as it has to do with your movement into the future. Indeed, what you are finding is that you can begin to stretch your timelines of civilization, of human creation, further and further back into time. And so this pocket of civilization was in no way unique. And what it also still upheld was the ability for some of the society to move into a communication with other seers in other places, just forming a type of energetic exchange, or what you may think of as energetic phone lines, though the impressions were quite obscured. And so some of these members of this society, they later also made it, when it fell, they later also made it into adjacent civilizations, and some of them even found themselves transmitting knowledge to hunter-gatherers further up north in the eastern parts of Asia. And here there was some information transferred and stored in the memories of these that were then brought into the mythological realities of the people that inhabited the Americas. This is the information that we sense is pertinent to bring forward, but know that much more information will be coming on this site, partially from the archaeological discoveries and partially from different of your galactic brethren. Other entities and civilizations have been more invested in this, and so we sense it will not be too wise of us to divulge too much of it right now. Blessings. Sarah from Susan says, I've been told to work with the dragons to create artwork that contains 4D gemstones or oracles that will act on the viewer to clear or heal energies. Please provide more clarity about how this works. Fascinating. Like, I'm also being called to work a lot more with crystals myself, and I sense this is sort of something, as we grow more energetically attuned, that will that we actually begin to perceive really the richness of crystals and what they can do. So it's a very, very good and interesting question. Yes, what you are learning is that vibration indeed is information, and that is why you can translate information from starlight, and you can store this information in the crystals, and you can also store certain intentions and energies in crystals, and these also hold, of course, well, thinking of your microchips, these indeed also hold certain storage capabilities in and of themselves, but defined by what type of crystal that it is you want to store. And we sense that since you are working with it personally, it is helpful for you to explore these installments and configurations of crystals. But know that when you create these oracles, and it is not a bad word, because they will disseminate types of information that then guides the seeker into walking down their own path. And so you will discern that the arrangements that you prefer, they will confer different messages. So using, for instance, the same 12 gemstones, by rearranging them, you will make a different light grid that will have a different effect. So one might bring higher degrees of remembrance or wisdom of the true being to the viewer or the person interacting with the energy field. And if you then rearrange the crystals, you may instead feel that healing energy or a sense of calm and relaxation. It was what emanates from it. And this indeed also mirrors, we are using the word 12 because this mirrors the orchestration of your DNA strands. So when these are working vibrationally in harmony, they sort of activate themselves in different types of resonance patterns that that then code the cells that they make up with different types of basic frequencies, and then is transmitted into the greater mind or your perception of yourself, or that thing you call you. And the reason that the dragons are calling you in this is because, again, speaking of these energies that we lie hidden beneath the continents and have hidden your wisdom, a lot of our wisdom is stored in the gems that we have allowed to be then released. Speaking of this truth that grows over time, that we have been allowed to release. So you may sense it helpful to collect stones from different disparate parts and continents of your earth and to then place them together in order to reveal more of this draconic wisdom. And you will find, if you yourself feel inclined to it, or you may sense that other energy workers or people who translate energies into words may be able to discern a lot of information in these stones and in the information that is stored in them to be channeled out and shared with humanity at the right time. You are instrumental in this. Of course, you have a choice, but we do sense that this is in alignment with your calling and your purpose, and that high draconic magic and a lot of bliss will be revealed in you exploring this. Blessings to you in this endeavor, dear one. Yes, very, very cool. And thank you all. I'll and iMark says non-channeling question. Yes, I can, because I'm getting a little tired from the dragon energy. Is just it's so heavy to hold. But I'm in Oaxaca. I'm in the Central Valley, and to be specific, I'm close to. I'm in a little village, but close to a sort of suburb village to Oaxaca City, which is called Tule, and it has it's famous because it has two very, very ancient trees that are thousands of years old, and they also have a special energy. It's quite special when you just get to experience them. So thanks for the question, and thanks for the gathering here. I think he will bring forward some blessings and a message to close, and I'll just also offer my appreciation to you guys for being here. So much love, and I'll do the final announcements at the end. Perfect. Yes, and on the outside, we hear the roaring of a lawnmower to team up with the roaring that we will encourage you to express. Know that all your creation in this world, all your machinery, all your technologies, all your expressions, they are indeed the roaring of the human spirit that wants to forcefully release itself here on the earth. And as you grow into this higher degree of crystalline vibration, know that this roaring, this expression that wants to come through you, it becomes of a more benevolent kind. It might seem forceful, it might seem like anger, it might sometimes seem like it's ripping the structures of your mental constructs and your inner body to pieces, but indeed it is something that you will need to learn to harness in order for you to feel that you are coming into a sense of empowered autonomy in your own personal realms. And with that, I will also offer you a draconic dialect of light language to be able, that you can harness to activate these codes within you. I have been the Dragonlord Flipkraktrukrarr, and this day I have been enjoying and indeed relishing sharing your energy with you human beings. My love and blessings and the assistance of the dragons I offer you as you proceed into this exploration of the unknown you call your future. Power, honor, strength, love. Okay. It's because when you do the channeling and relate with human energies, it's sometimes it kind of adjusts to people, and also so my vocal cords can handle it. But here at the end, he just brought forward that pure violent energy, and I'm always surprised at how goddamn powerful it is. So that was just that was excellent, and thank you for all the love and. I'm feeling inclined to go quite a kind of angelic and dietic here. So what I plan for the next two live streams, and I think I'll keep doing these Sundays, perhaps. I like it. Is next Sunday I plan to channel Archangel Raphael, and then I'll channel God Mercury, Lord of Enlightenment, and numinous insights. And I hope you will join us there too. And so good to see many of you, and wishing all of you a beautiful Sunday out there, and thank you for a lovely gathering. So blessings to you guys, and may you have a lovely Sunday, however much left you have of it.